Hi everyone, and welcome to And So On. My name is Lisa, and today I'm going to tell you how to get the most out of your fabric. Okay, so this is a topic that I think has been greatly requested over the years, and sometimes people tease me about it because I always want to get the most out of any length of fabric. Whether it's a 3-meter length of fabric and I want to get 3 pieces out of it, or it's a 1/2 meter fabric and I want to get a sweatshirt, I love to get the most out of small cuts of fabric. And so I thought today would be fun if I shared some of my tips and tricks to get the most out of your fabric. So why does this factor so significantly in my making? I think, like most of you, I want to get the most of my money. You know, buying quality fabric will always yield the best results, and I love a bargain, don't get me wrong, but when you've sewn with quality fabric, you absolutely feel the difference. And so those fabrics cost more, and they probably should cost more if they're made well. And so I want to get every single thing I can get out of that. And maybe that's one large project with a smaller secondary project, or maybe it's getting a project that I really shouldn't be able to get out of that small amount of fabric, but I still figure it out. And if I can't even do that, I like to have scraps at least the side that I can do things like cut pocket linings or facings or the inside of collars or whatever to really make the most of that fabric. And so all those things not only allow me to save money, but it also is more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. And interestingly, the sponsor of today's video also cares about using up every little shred of fabric. Today's sponsor is Lily Silk, and it actually says on their website that they use remains of some of their beautiful 100% mulberry silk fabric to make things like eye masks and scrunchies. More about Lily Silk later. Spoiler alert, I am wearing one of their blouses, but I do thank them for sponsoring this video, and we'll chat about them in a little bit. Okay, so in my view, there are 2 categories to this topic. Number 1, there's the overall mindset and philosophy of getting the most of your fabric, and then the second part is the practical tips. So I think you have to have the first before you can really make the most of the second, so bear with me. So number 1, you need to make planning to cut conservatively a habit. It has to be something as normal for you as grabbing the rotary cutter or turning on your sewing machine. I never, ever just fold my fabric in half, set it down, follow the layout guide, and cut. Never. You have to be willing to spend a little more time in the process of finding the most economical way to cut your fabric in order to reap the rewards. Plan every time to find the most economical way to cut. Number 2 is be flexible. So you've often seen me show you a piece of fabric or show you a pattern or show you the 2 of them together, and I don't end up making necessarily what I thought I was going to make. And for me, I'm okay with that. For me, that's just part of the creative process. You know, I'm okay if I have to change plans midstream. And for some of you out there who are maybe a little more type A than I am, that might be difficult to kind of get your brain around. But I promise that if you let go of the reins just a little bit and try to be a bit more flexible and a little bit more fluid in your plans, then you might end up with some amazing results. In my experience, the happy accidents of compromise actually produce the most magical results and the ones that you're most proud of. Okay, so before I get into the practical tips, let's take a little break to talk about Lily Silk. I was so excited when Lily Silk approached me about sponsoring a video, and I immediately headed over to their website, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of a kid in a candy store as I was looking at all of the beautiful garments, underwear, pajamas, bedding sets, eye masks, all sorts of stuff like that. And I was just really excited to give it a try. So they gave me 3 things to try out, and I wanted to share them with you. Okay, so let's start with the shirt. This is the drop shoulders oversized shirt in grade A mom silk crepe de chine, and it is very luxurious, but it's also washable. It's very breathable. It is wrinkle resistant, and it is very well made. And you guys know that I'm highly critical of things that I find in the store that they are poorly sewn. And this has French seams throughout, even inside of the sleeves, which I don't remember the last time I bought something that had French seams. The buttonholes, all the quality of the top stitching, it really is very well done. You know, silk is so amazing because not only does it just feel luxurious, it's a natural fiber, so it breathes really well. And did you know that it actually takes less water to grow mulberry trees than it does to produce and grow cotton, which I thought was really interesting. And they have the Ecotech certification, which means that everything has been made cleanly and with no toxins. Today I paired my silk shirt with my Morgan jeans and a nice brown belt. It kind of has a little bit of chic in it, but also very comfortable. So the next thing I got were silk pillowcases. Here's my silk pillowcase that I took off my bed. It is so soft. So here's a funny story is that I've never had silk pillowcases. When I think of silk pillowcases, I think I was thinking of the satin pillowcases from like the 80s and the 90s that your head would kind of slip right off when you tried to sleep on it. And so I'll be honest, this was actually the one that I was least looking forward to. I wasn't even sure how much I would use them. And my daughter, who's 15, was like, "Oh, I want a silk pillowcase. It's so good for your hair. It's so good for your skin." And I said, "Well, if Dad doesn't like his, you can have Dad's." And Dad is not giving up his pillowcase. He loves it. It is so soft and comfortable to sleep on, and because it's not as absorbent as cotton, it actually doesn't pull moisture from the surface of your skin, and it also doesn't drag on your skin. So I don't have curly hair, so I know that it's good for your hair as well, but for me it was more about my face. So tell me I'm not alone here, that as I get older, the pillow marks on your face last longer in the day. Like, I remember just a few weeks ago, before these arrived, looking in the mirror and going, it's noon and I still have pillow marks on my face. It was just terrible. And so what I noticed with this immediately was no pillow marks on my face, or if so, they were gone really quickly. They just weren't as deep. So I'm loving sleeping on this. It's because it's moisture wicking and it's breathable, I find it really, really cool. My head does not slip off the pillow and it's very, very comfortable. So this was a surprise, but I can see sleeping on these forever. Also totally washable. I wash these in the washing machine on my gentle setting, and I actually even did a little bit of a tumble dry before letting them dry on the couch. Okay, so the last one's a little bit cheeky because it wasn't on the list of things that I was supposed to choose from, but I said to Elena, could I try your bras? Because I really don't like wearing underwire bras, like as little as possible. Forgive me if I don't model this for you, but I will show you a close-up. This is the one size fits most classic wireless silk bra. And it is silk mixed with spandex. There's also some nylon and elastin on parts of it. But this is so comfortable, and I'm so glad that I kind of went on a limb and asked them if I could try it. Because again, the silk is very breathable, it's moisture wicking, it's very soft on your skin, and so it's so comfortable to wear. And let me show you the packaging. This is the Lily Silk packaging. I have other boxes for the other items, and my daughters have spirited them away to use for either their hair ties or their jewelry. But I love this inside. So nice. And as you can see, the bra that was wrapped actually comes with an extra set of removable cups. There's already a set in here, and then it comes with a second set. So I found this bra really comfortable, and I look forward to trying more in their line of bras because it's quite luxurious. So if you want to try any of these or any of the other products, if you head over there, you can get a 12% discount using the code SEWON12. And if you wanted to buy two, you could get one and the second one for 25% off, and you use SEWON25%. So I'm linking all that below, including the products that I received, and you can head over there if you would like. Okay, on to the practical tips. So I have 6 practical tips here for you. So number 1, take fabric requirements with a grain of salt. So having tested patterns, I know that designers will add a little bit extra on top of fabric requirements, because what they don't want is for someone to go out, buy a certain amount of fabric that was suggested, and then not be able to make the project. So they always give you just a teeny bit extra to make sure that that doesn't happen. I'm not saying ignore the fabric requirements at all. I'm just saying that if you have 1.75 meters of fabric and it calls for 2 meters, don't cross it off the list and go, oh, I don't have enough fabric. We can figure it out. On top of that, use your experience. If you're an experienced seamstress, you know approximately how much fabric you need to get a t-shirt. You also know approximately how much fabric you need for a trouser, so trust your instincts. Number 2, look at the style that you're gonna make and decide what is really important. So if I have a pattern and I know that the fabric that I have is not big enough, I know that I am significantly or quite significantly under the fabric requirements of the pattern, I will look at that pattern and go, what can I compromise on here? That could mean adjusting the length of a garment. It could be omitting a waist tie. It could be changing the collar from a full stand collar to maybe just a simple collar, making short sleeves instead of long sleeves, omitting pockets, right? There's all sorts of ways that you could slightly change the style and recover some of that fabric. I do this all the time. But let's use the example of the Sew It Now blouse, and I'll put in a picture of what it looks like and me cutting it. So the main thing I did with this is there was a much longer hem on the back, and I really wanted a crop blouse. So I decided that part wasn't necessary, and I probably saved about 20 centimeters of fabric. And on that one, you can see that I needed it. Number 3, determine which pieces of fabric absolutely must be in your self fabric and what you might be able to cut from something else. So I often will look at a pattern and go, okay, I don't have to cut the pocket linings in the self. I don't have to necessarily cut the inside of the collar in the self, the inside of the waistband, the facings. Those are all invisible. That's no one's going to see anyway. So if I cut it from something different, it's totally fine. A good example are the Nita shorts that I did. I completely changed the pocket lining and the inner waistband. And to me, that became a feature. And I got those shorts out of 1/2 meter. I've also often cut the inner back yoke of something in a different fabric because again, that's on the inside of the garment, and a yoke can take up quite a lot of space. Now, if you look at things that are on the outside of the garment, where can we maybe make some choices that are going to be a feature? You know, add some color blocking, maybe add a pocket in a different color, the back yoke of a shirt, you know, collar, pockets. On a sweatshirt, you've got a whole range of options, you know, what color you want to do the waistband, the cuffs, or maybe it's a raglan and you do the sleeves separate from the body, as I just did there in the Lindsay hoodie. That was taken from 2 1 meter cuts of fabric plus a remnant from something else, right? And to that end, try keeping like fabric cuts together because you'll be more apt to use them together if they're close together and you can kind of see them in your mind's eye. And so another example of this is when I made that little lounge set last year, and I had 1 meter of fabric from Guthrie and Ghani, and I used a contrast waistband to create a set out of 1 meter of fabric. And you know, when you're in a store and you see a dress that's maybe combining different fabrics, it's almost extra, right? Like it's extra chic, extra fancy. But for us sewists, really that's just a way to extend the life of a length of fabric. Okay, so now we're at the actual cutting process. And like I said, never, never, never just fold your fabric in half, set it down, and just plunk the pieces on, unless that's what you want to do. But because we're talking about saving and economizing on fabric here, I would say don't do that. You really want to take your time to Tetris those pattern pieces onto your length of fabric. You know, I've been known to take a long time with this. I will put something on there, I will contemplate it, I'll walk away and have lunch, I'll come back, sometimes it's even the next day. But honestly, for me, figuring that out is half the fun. And so I'm always so happy with my process at the end. And if I can't fit that pattern on that piece of fabric, at least I know I tried. Okay, so what are some of the things that I try? Instead of just folding my fabric in half, sometimes I just fold in one small bit, just enough to be able to cut a front bodice or a back bodice on the fold. And that way I'm only taking a small amount of the width, not the whole width. Maybe I cut something on the cross grain. Very often I will cut something that is supposed to be on the fold and I will cut it in 2 pieces and seam it up the back. I did that on my Meadowood blouse. That was one of my most popular makes last year, the white one. I cut that back yoke in 2 pieces because I had almost no fabric left to make that. And even though the pattern is slightly off, most people I talked to thought that was a feature. They thought that looked amazing. So undersides of collars, I will often cut in 2 pieces and seam it up the back. Don't feel like just because it says it needs to be cut on the fold, that is absolutely the case. You can always find a way around it. Bottom line is consider all the possibilities, not just the first one that you set down. Okay, so once you have cut everything and you may have some yardage left and then maybe some little scraps, keep those all together rather than splitting them up, as long as they're usable, because that way the next time you go to cut something from that fabric, you know, when I was making those Nita trousers and I only had 1/2 meter of the linen left, I did have some scraps on the side and I'm like, okay, well I can cut the button loops from this, right? I can cut, you know, part of the pocket, I'll put in a picture, I literally had the pocket and just a small portion that was going to be visible from the outside in the self fabric. So you can really get creative with scraps, but keep them together or else you'll completely forget if they're in a separate box somewhere else. And then lastly, what to do with those smaller amounts. Have some tried and true patterns on hand so that you actually do use up these bits that are big enough for you to make a small garment out of. So I know that Helen from Helen's Closet, she will keep an underwear pattern around and she'll cut a pair of underwear when she's working on a t-shirt, because that way it's there, it's done, she puts it in a basket, and the next time she feels like sewing up a bunch of underwear, it's there. I have the Ogden cami, which I use all the time. And a good example of that, I'll put in a picture, is when I worked on the Nita trousers in a stretch suiting, and I made a cropped Ogden cami to go with it. So again, I couldn't fit the whole Ogden, but I could get a cropped Ogden. And so I folded that up and I got that there. If I know that I think I'm gonna be able to get 2 pieces out of one length of fabric, I will sometimes pull out that second pattern and cut them together to make sure that I've allowed, because there's nothing worse than going, oh, if I just had this much more, I would be able to get a second garment. So if I know for a fact that there's something else I want to do or there's something else I could do, sometimes I keep them both on hand and I cut them at the same time. Or even if I don't cut it, I at least place it on there so that I know I've left myself some room. And then the last little bonus tip is don't forget about seam allowances. Sometimes seam allowances that are built into patterns are actually quite large and more than you're going to use, and you just end up trimming that off later. If you add that up over several pattern pieces, you might be able to gain enough to be able to cut something that you didn't think you had the space for. So always figure out what the seam allowance is, if that matches up with the way you like to sew, and if not, maybe either trim them down or just keep an eye and be aware that you can offset things a little bit to account for that. I know for me, the best part about learning these skills is that when I have a beautiful piece of fabric that I absolutely love, I'm able to make more than one thing out of it, sometimes 2 or 3 things when you add in linings and facings and all that. And every time I do, I go, oh, I'm so happy. Okay guys, those are all my top tips for getting the most out of your fabric. I hope this was useful for you. Please do let me know if there was any out there that you were like, ooh, good idea. I'm gonna put that one in my back pocket. I would love to hear it. Okay guys, that's all for me. I hope that wherever you are, the sun is shining and you are sewing, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.